Toad bread, toady toad bread. This bread is so good. It's soft, herbaceous, and very peculiar. This week's Halloween special is an ode to witches, so let's conjure up a toad, do some witchcrafts, and who knows, perhaps we'll get a visit from some peculiar familiars. I'm Nikk, and welcome to Practical Peculiarities. Baking is much like casting a spell, so let's conjure up this toad. First, gather and pre-measure all the ingredients. To start, warm the water and milk and pour it into a measuring cup. This has been heated to around 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, add a tablespoon of granulated sugar and mix it to dissolve. From there, add the active dry yeast. Funny thing about yeast is it's a living organism that loves to sleep in the cold. The warm milk and sugar wake it up. So after stirring it and letting it sit for 5 minutes, it should foam up and bubble like a cauldron. It's alive. While the yeast is activating, to a large bowl, add bread flour, shortening, and butter, and the secret ingredient, apple cider vinegar. This helps condition the dough to make it soft and preserve it for a longer shelf life. Add the fresh rosemary, salt, and an unborn chicken. Then add the bubbling yeast mixture and stir it up into a mass. Oops, I went a little hard there. Once the dough is mostly together, spill it out onto a surface and begin to knead it for a total of 10 minutes. It's important to not add any extra flour to the surface or the dough will become tough. It's supposed to be soft and tacky and will come together the more you knead it. Another relation that bread baking has to spell casting is that it requires all 4 elements. Earth is the flour, air is yeast, water gives the hydration, and fire from the oven is used to help it manifest into deliciousness. Here's a trick to check if the dough is kneaded sufficiently. Hold and stretch a small piece up to the light. If the light shines through with no tears, it's good to go. Butter the mixing bowl, place the dough in, and cover it with plastic wrap. Let it rise for 1.5 hours until doubled in size. Once the dough is doubled in size, punch it down and press out all of the gas air bubbles. Take a nickel-sized piece from the bottom and set it aside for the eyes. Shape the dough in an elongated egg shape and place it on a baking tray lined with parchment paper. With scissors, make these cuts as shown. These are the front legs, and these are the back legs. To make them more leg-like, cut them like this. From there, shape the body and pinch and tuck all the cut edges. This will make the final look cleaner and soften all the geometric shapes that are made by the cuts. Quickly sculpt them into shape, bringing the back legs forward and cutting little notches to create fingers and toes. You really want to work with haste here because the dough will start rising and get a little more difficult to shape. With a chopstick, poke the holes for the eyes and use the scrap dough for the eyeballs. Cover the baby with plastic wrap. Say a spell and let him rise for 30 to 40 minutes in a warm place. In the meantime, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Mix an egg yolk with 1 teaspoon of water, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a generous pinch of salt. Once the toad is doubled in size, brush him with the egg wash Be sure to get every bit of him, including his crevices. This is like a paint and will give him a great golden brown color. Did you know that familiars aren't just witches' pets? They're much more peculiar than that. In folklore, a familiar is a supernatural being that takes the form of an animal. I'm sure you've seen them in your favorite witchy TV shows, often depicted as cats, dogs, birds, and even toads. However, a witch can't just pick up any old pet from the pet store and call it a familiar. It's said that one must be gifted to them by inheritance from another witch, or arrive mysteriously when a witch's power is awakened. Some legends even say that they're gifted by the devil himself. Familiars were used to assist witches in gathering ingredients, spying, protecting, and even enhancing spells. But of course, all magic comes at a price. Witches weren't feeding their familiars any old kibble as payment. They'd actually feed from the witch's body and draw energy from their blood. So they say. This was done through a special mark called a witch's mark, or as it was referred to in Old Salem, thou witch's teat, which was just a mole or a birthmark, and of course another excuse to execute and accuse another innocent person of witchcraft. That said, modern witches have reclaimed the idea of familiars in a gentler way. Today, a familiar might be simply your pet, a companion, and a symbol of magical alignment. In fact, my grandmother used to say that when you have a pet and it's very close to you, and it dies suddenly, it was because they were protecting you from death's touch. I know, it's morbid, but that's why I am the way that I am. Anyway, our modern-day familiars may not transform into shadows or whisper secrets in the night, but they still help us feel connected to the unseen. Isn't that right, Hollow? Up, up. Good boy. Good boy. To make a quick herb butter, add a teaspoon of fresh rosemary, a tablespoon of grated Parmesan, a teaspoon of salt, and a quarter teaspoon of garlic powder. Mix it up for the perfect spread for this bread. You know the toad is done when you stick a thermometer into his behind and it reads between 200 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. Sorry to this toad. And there we have it. A perfect toad bread. So soft and fluffy. And with that, it's so good. I hate to see him go, but he served his purpose. Toad bread, toady toady toad bread.
Toad bread, toady toady toad bread. A toad-shaped bread with golden crust croaks from the oven with a smell so robust. Toad bread, toady toady toad bread. Toad bread, toady toady toad bread. Puffy head and crispy fingers, the smell of herbs and garlic lingers. Toad bread, toady toady toad bread. Toad bread, toady toady toad bread. Here's some advice we know to be true. It's best to eat him before he eats you. Toad bread, toady old bread.
As you can already tell, I'm obsessed with witches. And I have been ever since I was a kid. I actually would wear a witch cape everywhere that I went, even to school. I mean, I grew up on movies like Hocus Pocus, Practical Magic, Halloween Town, and I was also raised by my grandmother who had the same obsession. In fact, this decoration here is something I hold near and dear. This was given to me by my grandmother, which was given to her by my great-grandmother. My grandma added this cat medallion, and she'd tell me to never take it off or the witch would get up from her chair. Ooh. I then started collecting witches with the same face. I actually begged my dad for this one when I was like 4. While other kids played with toys, I played with Halloween decorations. I've recently been obsessed with these medieval witchy woodcuts from the 1500s, and I thought it would be cool to incorporate them into my decor in a classy way by wood burning them onto charcuterie boards. So I picked up these boards from TJ Maxx. They were fairly inexpensive. I traced it onto a piece of paper. I didn't want to just transfer the image onto the board. I wanted it to fill the whole space. So I began to collage the scene to expand it. I also drew some simple lines to expand it. I still felt like there was too much negative space, so I filled it with stars and moons. From there, I add a layer of carbon transfer paper between the board and the design. I tape it and trace it with a pen. I like using a pen for this because it marks where you've already traced. This part made my hand hurt so much, but doing it while watching The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina made it a lot less painful. Once traced, like magic, the design appears. Next, I got this wood burner for under $20, and I'm using the thinnest tip to burn the lines onto the wood. This smells so good, like an autumn bonfire. I'm not too concerned about getting the lines straight, because the more handmade this looks, the more authentic it appears. At this point, my nozzles started to bend, but I found it much better to work with. And bam! A perfect bewitched charcuterie board. They're great for decoration or entertaining your coven. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of the Practical Peculiarities Halloween special. Join me next week and every Sunday night this October for a new haunting episode. Next week, we'll be basking in Halloween nostalgia, so be there or be haunted. Also, if you haven't checked out my cookbook, Peculiar Baking, please do. And remember these words from the wise. There's a little witch in all of us. Good night.